Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into Wudu. Now, you might think of it as just washing up before prayer, but it's actually so much more than that. It's a really beautiful ritual in Islam that connects physical cleanliness with a deeper, spiritual kind of purity. It's all about getting ready for worship.
So let's break down the word itself. Wudu actually comes from a root that means beauty and cleanliness. And in a religious sense, it's about using water on specific parts of the body, but, and this is the most important part, it has to be done with a clear, conscious intention. That connection between the beautiful meaning of the word and its spiritual purpose is really the key to understanding the whole practice.
So here's how we're going to break it all down in this explainer. First, we'll get into the real meaning behind the ritual. Then, we'll cover what you need to do to prepare. We'll walk through the 6 absolute must-do pillars, look at ways you can perfect the practice, and finally, talk about how to actually maintain that state of purity.
All right, first things first. Let's get right to the heart of it. Why is Wudu so important? What's the real why behind this ritual?
The whole philosophy here is about making yourself ready to stand before God. In Islam, prayer isn't just reciting words, it's seen as a direct conversation, like a sacred audience. So Wudu is the act of preparing for that meeting, purifying not just your body, but also getting your mind and heart focused and ready for what's about to happen.
And what's really interesting is that the practice wasn't always exactly the way it is today. It was made mandatory right alongside prayer itself. And in the beginning, it was actually required before every single prayer. But later on, that was relaxed a bit, making it obligatory only when a person's state of ritual purity has been broken.
Okay, so let's move on to the preparation. Because before the first drop of water even touches your skin, there are a bunch of conditions that have to be met for the wudu to even count as valid.
Think of these as setting the stage. The person has to be a Muslim who gets what they're doing. The water itself needs to be what's called mutlaq, which basically means it's pure, natural water, not mixed with stuff that changes it. And of course, it's super important that the water can actually flow over your skin, so nothing like thick paint or wax can be blocking it.
And now we get to the absolute core of Wudu, the 6 essential pillars. These are the non-negotiables. You can't miss a single one of these, or the whole wudu is invalid and you have to start over.
So, what's the very first pillar? Well, it's one you can't even see. It happens entirely in your heart, before any water is involved. It's called the niyyah, or the intention.
The niyyah is that silent internal decision to perform wudu for one reason, to purify yourself for worship. This is what turns the simple act of washing your face into a profound act of devotion. And you usually make this intention right as you start to wash your face.
So here they are, the full sequence of pillars. You start with the intention. Then you wash your entire face. Next, wash your arms all the way up to and including the elbows. Then you wipe a part of your head. And finally, you wash your feet up to and including the ankles. And get this, that 6th pillar, at-tertib, is absolutely critical. It means you have to do it in this exact order. The sequence itself is a pillar.
Okay, so we've covered the must-dos. Now let's talk about the sunan. These are the recommended acts. They aren't strictly required for your wudu to be valid, but they're things the Prophet Muhammad taught that, perfect and beautify the whole ritual and bring a greater reward.
So, you've got the basics down. How do you take it to the next level? Well, the sources give us a whole set of recommended actions that can turn a good wudu into a great one. It's about being more mindful and complete.
Before you even get to washing your face, the pillar, it's recommended to start by saying Bismillah, then wash your hands 3 times, rinse your mouth, and sniff a little water into your nose to clean it out. These steps just get you ready and make sure everything is extra clean.
And here's a really neat detail. Usually, a really good, vigorous rinse is encouraged for the best cleaning, but there's an exception. If you're fasting, you're not supposed to overdo it because you might accidentally swallow water, and that would break your fast. It just goes to show how the practice is mindfully adapted to your situation.
And as you're going through the main steps, there are more recommended acts. For example, wiping your whole head instead of just a small part. Wiping your ears, always starting with your right arm and right foot before the left one. Washing each part 3 times. And really rubbing the water in. Each of these just adds another layer of care and thoroughness.
And the act doesn't just stop with the last drop of water. It's recommended to do all the washings one after another without long breaks. Then, when you're done, to say a specific prayer and even to perform a short 2-unit voluntary prayer. It frames the whole ritual from beginning to end with remembrance.
So, you've done it. You've completed your wudu, and you're officially in a state of ritual purity. Awesome! But this state isn't permanent. So this last part is all about what keeps you in that state and what can break it.
Okay, first we need to get one thing straight. There's a big difference between acts that are simply disliked, things that might reduce the perfection of your wudu but don't break it, and acts that are invalidators. Those are the ones that completely break your wudu and mean you have to do it all over again.
So here are some of those disliked acts. Things like wasting water, washing way more than 3 times, or starting with the left side. They kind of go against the ideal way of doing things. They're imperfections you want to avoid, but they don't hit the reset button.
All right, now this list is different. These are the deal breakers, the invalidators. This includes stuff like using the bathroom, falling into a really deep sleep where you kind of lose control, or fainting. If any of these things happen, your state of purity is broken and you absolutely have to perform wudu again before you can pray.
So after looking at all the ways to perfect wudu and all the things to avoid, we come right back to this fundamental number, 6. It's a great reminder that among all the details, these 6 essential, unshakable pillars, done in the right order, are the absolute foundation of a valid wudu.
And that's really what this all boils down to. Wudu is way more than just washing. It's an outer purification that is designed, from start to finish, to prepare you for an inner connection. Every single step is meant to shift your focus away from the noise of the world and toward a state of readiness to speak with God.
And that's where we'll leave it. We've spent this time talking about the physical ritual that cleanses the body. But that, of course, leads to a much deeper question. If this is how you prepare on the outside, what's the equivalent for preparing your heart and your mind?